Now, I think that we could almost certainly agree that 2023 was by far the worst year for the Walt Disney Company, not just limited to the chain of box office failures in that year, but also the fact that it so happened to land on their 100th anniversary, right? We all know that Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, really went into full damage control over the Marvels, Indiana Jones 5, The Mandalorian Season 3, and among other projects that failed miserably, whether at the box office or the ratings, when it came to television programs, and things are about to get even worse in 2025 between both Snow White 2025 and Captain America 4. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So we all know that Disney has this deliberate agenda to basically flip the animated classics upside down when it comes to their live-action versions, right? We all saw what happened with The Little Mermaid, with the upcoming Snow White film, what they have, of course, in store with Sword in the Stone, and among other live-action films that are being created to essentially retell those animated classics by either race-swapping the characters or drastically moving away from the source material. Now, this is where things get even worse for Rachel Zegler's sake when it comes to the current Snow White situation. Let's discuss and how she recently lost millions of dollars with, of course, the Walt Disney Company and exactly what it really all translates to. Now, specifically, of course, we already know that Snow White has a massive budget, well over $300+ million going into this thing, and that's not including, by the way, the marketing expenses going into it. However, with all divisions at the Walt Disney Company going downhill for multiple reasons due to Bob Iger's deliberate agenda, one major development now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler, as she reacted, of course, after losing millions of dollars behind the scenes with the Walt Disney Company. Now, one serious update to this situation now involves how the two sequels for Snow White 2025 have been officially canceled behind closed doors altogether after the disaster that is now Snow White 25 that is already eating up massive funds for Disney and is best described as production hell for Bob Iger as CEO. Now, a recent update to this situation now involves how Zegler reportedly lashed out with the Disney executives after they finalized their recent decision to pull the plug on the two Snow White sequels that were going to turn this live-action version of the story into a full-fledged trilogy from 2025 and ending in 2029. The original layout for them was to have Snow White 2025, the sequel in 27, and the final film by the end of the decade, all of which were going to feature Zegler as Snow White growing up and facing new foes connected to the evil queen. Zegler reportedly is already creating a plan to take some form of serious action against the Disney heads, whatever that may be, for providing false promises after her contract was ripped apart recently. The three-movie Snow White deal was described to be a multi-million-dollar deal for Zegler, and how Zegler, of course, was going to be paid $20 million for all three films together, roughly $6.9 million per Snow White film, with the possibility of that increasing at the time before her contract was destroyed. The reason why this multi-million-dollar deal for Zegler took so long to end, and how it got thrown out, involved a constant Disney shakeup between some of the board members that they wanted the trilogy to continue, while the majority of the board didn't want to see this through after the comments that were made by Rachel Zegler and how much damage she made to, of course, the Disney Company, and how families rejected to see the Snow White movie afterwards, and her attitude to the general public across many forms of social media back in 2023. In addition to all of this, Zegler claims that her contract was misleading by Disney and that she was essentially tricked by the Disney heads, including Bob Iger. Zegler reportedly passed on some roles that she was asked to take part in and missed out on those opportunities, believing that the two Snow White movies were happening. and that they were going to actually move forward, and is now blaming Disney for actually getting her to miss those opportunities with those other productions. To make matters worse for Disney's sake, Zegler's agent and manager are already looking to take some form of legal action, helping Zegler in the process. Something that's similar to what was actually happening with actresses like Tatiana Maslany and Brie Larson, for example, after they were let go from various roles. Even actress Amanda Stenberg is in a similar scenario in the Star Wars world over at Lucasfilm. So guys, let me just stop here quick before I move on. Now, the thing about this, the fact that they were so ludicrous to believe that a Snow White trilogy was going to work for Disney fans, let alone with the general public, is just crazy. Now, what's nuts is the fact that they wanted to double down on basically putting out all of these Snow White sequels and putting out more Lion King material, which, by the way, is not working so far. There indeed are conversations of ending The Lion King 2. Don't get that confused with The Lion King Mufasa, that's the prequel, but they want to create a Lion King 2. That is now in shambles. The 3-movie Lion King format may very well not happen in the long run. But what's interesting is that they wanted to do something similar with Snow White. They wanted to create 3 films based on an animated classic, which makes absolutely no sense to me. The fact that they wanted to basically borrow elements from different iterations of Snow White. I mean, we've seen many different films across pop culture and different versions of the character. Some of them are lesser known, some of them were done back in 2012. But what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with Rachel Zegler's position over at the Walt Disney Company and how she lost out on this multi-million-dollar deal. Well, maybe you live and learn, right? Maybe you don't say comments like, you know, about how the prince was a stalker, or that you expect your, side, of course, part of the Snow White storyline when it comes to the different actors involved, that they may very well get cut from the film. All those different comments that she made really just did not work well for the PR side of things over at Disney, and it only made things worse. So, like I said earlier, this was an ongoing conversation between Bob and the Disney heads about ripping that contract apart and throwing it out the window. It is now no longer happening. The Snow White movie is just going to be a singular format for 2025, and you know what? Thankfully, because nobody was asking for 3 Snow White movies. Moving on. Now, Bob Iger and the Disney heads, of course, are already preparing another emergency meeting to take place by the middle of this month to discuss the Zegler situation and the finalized plans related to the Snow White trilogy no longer moving forward and what films to replace for those spots. So now they're scrambling, right? What movie are they going to throw in there for 2027 and 2029, where the 2 Snow White sequels were supposed to drop at any given month? Now, look, we all know that Disney doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to the live-action remakes. That's why there's a halt on many of the productions. That's why you're not hearing too much about Hercules and Sword in the Stone, and among others that are still in the works. They even want to do a remake of Alice in Wonderland. We'll talk more about that next week, by the way. Stay tuned on that. But yeah, Bob Iger, worst CEO of all time at Disney, easily dethroning Bob Chapek as far as I see things. But overall, let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.